The Vatican is both a sovereign state and the headquarters for a world religion. This structure was patterned upon Babylonian Judaic principles. The Vatican is an independent and sovereign nation in its own currency, Secretary of State, and ambassador. Once a person is baptized into the Catholic Church, he becomes a member of that church. When he is confirmed, he becomes a citizen of the Church, able to assume the responsibilities of that citizen and to defend his faith against its enemies. Once confirmed, the new citizen must be prepared when called upon to fight for the faith of Christ. The citizens of the Roman Church must have strength and fortitude to enable them, in the spiritual contest, to fight manfully and resist their most wicked foes. He now becomes a valiant combatant. He should be prepared to endure with unconquered spirit all adversaries for the name of Christ. In contrast, Jesus made clear that his kingdom was not of this world. God's kingdom is spiritual. Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from hence." John 18:36. Satan's kingdom is of this world. He has his citizens throughout the world. When a citizen must make a choice between obeying his country and obeying the Pope, according to the official Roman doctrine, he must obey the Pope. The Catholic canon law and dogma has superiority over the constitution of the country. All federal and state government officials in the United States must swear or affirm to support the U.S. Constitution. But as far as the Roman Catholic Church is concerned, a Catholic's allegiance to the Pope comes first. In fact, in 1199 AD, Pope Innocent III issued the papal bull Virgentis in Senium, in which he equated the heresy of violating papal edicts and Roman Catholic doctrines to treason. In 1231 AD, Pope Gregory IX issued papal bull Excommunicamus, wherein he officially fixed the penalty for heresy against the Catholic Church as the death penalty. During the Civil War, the Vatican was the only nation to recognize the sovereignty of the Southern Confederate States. How did this affect Catholic Union soldiers, knowing that they were fighting a cause that was opposed by their spiritual leader, who they believed had authority to prevent their entry into heaven? Many Catholics fought with bravery and distinction. Others abandoned the cause and turned traitor. Abraham Lincoln said, "Surely we have some brave and reliable Roman Catholic officials and soldiers in our armies, but they form an insignificant minority when compared with the Roman Catholic traitors against whom we have to guard ourselves day and night. The fact is that the immense majority of Roman Catholic bishops, priests, and laymen are rebels in heart. When they cannot be in fact, with very few exceptions, they are publicly in favor of slavery." Contrast Catholic General Sheridan, whom Lincoln described as worth a whole army by his ability, his patriotism, and his heroic courage, with Catholic General Meade, who seems to have chosen allegiance to Rome over allegiance to the U.S. Lincoln recounts one episode. "Meade has remained with us and gained the bloody battle at Gettysburg, but how could he lose it when he was surrounded by such heroes as Howard, Reynolds, Buford, Wadsworth, Cutler, Slocum, Sickles, Hancock, Barnes, etc.? But it is evident that his Romanism superseded his patriotism after the battle. He let the army of Lee escape when he could easily have cut his retreat and forced him to surrender after losing nearly the half of his soldiers in the last 3 days' carnage. When Meade was to order the pursuit after the battle, a stranger came in haste to the headquarters, and that stranger was a disguised Jesuit. After 10 minutes' conversation with him, Meade made such arrangements for the pursuit of the enemy that he escaped, almost untouched, with the loss of only 2 guns. President Lincoln knew full well of the treachery of the Roman Catholic Church, and the Vatican viewed him as an implacable enemy who had to be eliminated. In addition, the Jewish money powers also had an interest in eliminating Lincoln. Lincoln in large part thwarted their efforts to gain huge profits from the Civil War by printing the Lincoln greenbacks rather than borrowing the money at exorbitantly high interest rates from the bankers. Lincoln stated, "The money powers prey upon the nation in times of peace and conspire against it in the times of adversity. It is more despotic than a monarchy, more insolent than an autocracy, and more selfish than a bureaucracy. It denounces as public enemies all who question its methods or throw light upon its crimes. I have two great enemies, the Southern army in front of me and the bankers in the rear. Of the two, the one at my rear is my greatest foe." Charles Chineke, a former Catholic priest and close friend of Lincoln, revealed in his book, 50 Years in the Church of Rome, that the most striking manifestation of the Catholic conspiracy came when, in 1861, civil war broke out in the U.S. Abraham Lincoln, with a wartime intelligence network second to none, knew the cause of the Civil War, the Pope of Rome and his deadly servants, the Jesuits. Lincoln told Chineke on June 8, 1864, "This war would never have been possible without the sinister influence of the Jesuits. We owe it to popery that we now see our land reddened with the blood of her noblest sons." Though there were great differences of opinion between the South and the North on the question of slavery, neither Jeff Davis nor any of the leading men of the Confederacy would have dared to attack the North, had they not relied on the promises of the Jesuits that, under the mask of democracy, the money and the arms of the Roman Catholics, even the arms of France, were at their disposal if they would attack us. From the beginning of our Civil War, there has been not a secret but a public alliance between the Pope of Rome and Jeff Davis. The Pope and his Jesuits have advised, supported, and directed Jeff Davis on the land from the first gunshot at Fort Sumter by the rabid Roman Catholic Beauregard. They are helping him on the sea by guiding and supporting the rabid Roman Catholic pirate Semmes on the ocean. Lincoln further told Chineke, "It is with the Southern leaders of this Civil War as with the big and small wheels of our railroad cars. Those who ignore the laws of mechanics are apt to think that the large, strong, and noisy wheels they see are the motive power, but they are mistaken. The real motive power is not seen. It is noiseless and well concealed in the dark behind its iron walls. The motive power are the few well-concealed pails of water heated into steam, which is itself directed by noiseless, small, but unerring engineer's finger. The common people see and hear the big, noisy wheels of the Confederacy's cars. They call them Jeff Davis, Lee, Toombs, Beauregard, Demise, etc., and they honestly think that they are the motive power, the first cause of our troubles. But this is a mistake. The true motive power is secreted behind the thick walls of the Vatican, the colleges and schools of the Jesuits, the convents of the nuns, and the confessional boxes of Rome." Lincoln kept his knowledge of the Catholic conspiracy secret from the public because of his concern that to reveal it would start a bloody religious war. Lincoln told Chineke, "I pity the priests, the bishops, and the monks of Rome and the United States when the people realize that they are in great part responsible for the tears and the blood shed in this war. I conceal what I know, for if the people knew the whole truth, this war would turn into a religious war and at once take a tenfold more savage and bloody character. It would become merciless, as all religious wars are. It would become a war of extermination on both sides. The Protestants of both the North and the South would surely unite to exterminate the priests and the Jesuits if they could hear what Professor Morse has said to me of the plots made in the very city of Rome to destroy this republic, and if they could learn how the priests, the nuns, and the monks, which daily land on our shores under the pretext of preaching their religion, instructing the people in their schools, taking care of the sick in the hospitals, are nothing else but the emissaries of the Pope, of Napoleon, and the despots of Europe, to undermine our institutions, alienate the hearts of our people from our Constitution and our laws, destroy our schools, and prepare a reign of anarchy, as they have done in Ireland and Mexico and Spain and wherever they are any people who want to be free. Abraham Lincoln knew that the Roman Catholic Church is an uncompromising enemy of the United States. Lincoln explained to Chineke, "The Mormon and Jesuit priests are equally the uncompromising enemies of our Constitution and our laws, but the more dangerous of the two is the Jesuit, the Romish priest, for he knows better how to conceal his hatred under the mask of friendship and public good. He is better trained to commit the most cruel and diabolical deeds for the glory of God." Not only was the Romish Church responsible for the Civil War, but the Jesuits inspired and planned the assassination of Lincoln. Lincoln knew that he was marked for death by Rome and the Jesuits, and he knew it was only a matter of time before they succeeded. Lincoln told Chineke, "So many plots have already been made against my life that it is a real miracle that they have all failed, when we consider that the great majority of them were in the hands of the skillful Roman Catholic murderers, evidently trained by Jesuits." The Roman Catholic Church was the moving force behind the assassination of Lincoln. The transcripts of the trial of the Lincoln assassination, published by Ben Pittman, contain clear proof that the plot to assassinate Lincoln was born in Rome and nurtured in the house of Mary Surratt, 561 H Street, Washington, D.C. There was a continual flow of Catholic priests who would rendezvous at the house as the assassination was being plotted. The priests were the personal friends and father confessors of John Wilkes Booth, John Surratt, Mrs. and Miss Surratt. Without a single exception, all those involved in the Lincoln assassination plot and escape of Booth were Roman Catholic. Elaborate steps were taken by the Roman Catholic Church to assist John Surratt in his escape. John Surratt was in Washington on April 14, 1865, helping Booth prepare for the assassination, which was carried out by Booth that day. Catholic priest Charles Bouchard stated under oath that only a few days after the murder, John Surratt was sent to him by another Catholic priest, Father Lapierre. Bouchard kept him hidden until the end of July. From July to September, he was hidden by Lapierre in Montreal. When traveling on the steamer Montreal from Montreal to Quebec, Lapierre kept Surratt under lock and key in his cabin. On September 15, 1865, Lapierre and Surratt took the ocean steamer Peruvian to Europe. The doctor of the Peruvian, L.L. Macmillan, stated under oath that Catholic priest Lapierre introduced Surratt to him under the alias McCarthy, and that Lapierre kept Surratt locked in his stateroom on the ship until the ship departed for Europe. Lapierre was the canon of Bishop Bourget of Montreal. The canon of the bishop is the bishop's confidential man. He eats with him, assists him with his counsel, and receives his advice in every step of his life. According to the laws of the Roman Catholic Church, the canons are to the bishops what arms are to the body. Once spiriting Surratt out of Canada to Europe, where do you suppose Surratt was finally found? He was found under the alias Watson in the 9th Company of the Pope's Zouaves. When the United States found Surratt, the Pope was forced to pretend to withdraw his protection of him. Surratt was arrested by papal authorities. However, the arrest was only for appearances. Surratt was able to escape before American authorities could take custody of him. The papal authorities alleged, unconvincingly, that Surratt made his escape from Valetri prison by jumping 23 feet to a narrow precipice while he was under the guard of 6 men. 2 weeks after making his incredible escape from Valetri prison, Surratt was captured and brought back to the United States for trial. The evidence of Surratt's guilt was overwhelming, but Chineke explained that there was a hung jury because 3 of the jurors were Catholic, and they had been told by their father confessors that the Most Holy Father, the Pope, Gregory VII, had solemnly and infallibly declared that the killing of a heretic was no murder. The U.S. government was forced to release Surratt. The politicians in Washington concealed from the American public the hand of the Roman Catholic Church in the assassination of Lincoln.
Now let's ask ourselves this question. Is Rome, Italy today ruling over the world? Is that really the seat of governance in this world? I don't think that the global government is based in Rome, Italy. Now there are people out there who think the Catholic Church is running the world, you know, and the Jesuits, and it's a big conspiracy. I personally don't believe that. I don't believe that they have the power that they used to have. They used to have that kind of power, didn't they? I mean, back in the Middle Ages, they would put the crown on somebody's head. And in fact, it was a great turning point in human history when Napoleon actually took the crown out of the Pope's hand. When the Pope came to crown him, he took it out of his hand and put it on his own head. Basically showing him, I'm in charge, not you. So the bottom line is, that was a decline in the power of the Catholic Church, and we've continued to see a decline in their power and influence as far as global affairs go.
An agreement was negotiated with Rome in 1801 called the Concordat. The Pope, who was now in a position of weakness, accepted French authority in the appointment of bishops and relinquished ownership of state-confiscated lands. France, in turn, agreed to pay the salaries of the clergy and recognized Catholicism as a state religion. Alas, this new Caesar would have a short-lived empire. Despite the great reforms he initiated domestically, foreign wars eroded France's strength, wealth, and will. Britain starved France with the Continental Blockade, and German, Russian, and other forces began to defeat Napoleon's once victorious armies. Finally, in 1815, the last battle against the British and the Prussians at Waterloo ended the dream of a new Roman Empire. Napoleon died 6 years later, a prisoner of the British of gastric cancer while on the island of St. Helena. The fifth restoration of the Roman system of church and state was at an end.
So the question is then, where is Babylon today in the 21st century?
Where's the base, the headquarters of the empire?
Mm-hmm.
There is no objective way to look at it and not come to the conclusion that it's Washington, D.C.
This is the seat of global power. This is the seat of military might. And the United States of America today is the new Babylon. It's the new Roman Empire. It is the seat of globalist power. It is a world superpower.
A third city-state was officially created in 1982. That city-state is called the District of Columbia and is located on 10 square miles of land in the heart of Washington. The District of Columbia flies its own flag and has its own independent constitution. Although geographically separate, the city-states of London, the Vatican, and the District of Columbia are one interlocking empire called Empire of the City. The flag of Washington's District of Columbia has 3 red stars, one for each city-state in the 3-city empire. This corporate empire of 3 city-states controls the world economically through London's inner city, militarily through the District of Columbia, and spiritually through the Vatican. The Constitution for the District of Columbia operates under a tyrannical Roman law known as Lex Fori, which bears no resemblance to the U.S. Constitution. When Congress passed the Act of 1871, it created a separate corporate government for the District of Columbia. This treasonous act allowed the District of Columbia to operate as a corporation outside the original Constitution of the United States and outside of the best interests of American citizens. A sobering study of the signed treaties and charters between Britain and the United States exposes a shocking truth. The United States has always been, and still is, a British Crown colony. King James I was famous not for just changing the Bible into the King James Version, but for signing the First Charter of Virginia in 1606. That charter granted America's British forefathers a license to settle and colonize America. The charter also guaranteed that future kings and queens of England would have sovereign authority over all the citizens and colonized land in America stolen from the Indians. After America declared its independence from Great Britain, the Treaty of 1783 was signed. That treaty specifically identifies the King of England as the Prince of the United States and contradicts the belief that America won the War of Independence. Although King George III of England gave up most of his claims over his American colonies, he kept his right to continue receiving payment for his business venture of colonizing America. If America had really won the War of Independence, they would never have agreed to pay debts and reparations to the King of England. When Congress passed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, the U.S. President was made subservient to the King of England. The 13th Amendment is called the Title of Nobility Amendment and forbids U.S. presidents and their officials from using royal titles like king or prince or baron. For some mysterious reason, the 13th Amendment, which was ratified in 1810, no longer appears on current copies of the Constitution. America's blood-soaked War of Independence against the British bankrupted America and turned its citizens into permanent debt slaves of the King. In the War of 1812, the British torched and burned to the ground the White House and all U.S. government buildings and destroyed ratification records of the U.S. Constitution. 1 century later, a corrupt U.S. Congress committed the biggest theft in world history. They passed Paul Warburg's Federal Reserve Act in 1913, handing over America's gold and silver reserves and total control of America's economy to the Rothschild banksters. Most Americans still believe that the Fed or Federal Reserve is the government. It is not. The Fed is a privately owned banking system whose majority Class A shareholders are the Rothschilds, Warburgs, Kuhn and Loeb, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Israel Seif, and the Lehman Brothers. This private banking cartel is the Fed and is never audited and never pays taxes. They print and design America's money, which displays their symbols of an Egyptian pyramid, a Masonic all-seeing eye, and the words "In God We Trust." Who exactly is the God they trust? They also collect American taxpayers' money through the IRS. Then they loan it back again with interest to pay for roads, bridges, and other public works. American presidents are handpicked and financed by these special interest power groups. Like George W. Bush, John Forbes Kerry, whose initials are JFK, is a member of Yale University's Skull and Bones Brotherhood. The Forbes part of John Kerry's name identifies his descendancy from Captain Robert Bennett Forbes, who was a drug runner for the Rothschilds' opium drug trade with China in the 1800s. Most U.S. citizens believe that the United States is a country and that the President is the most powerful man on earth. The United States is not a country. It is a corporation, and the President is President of the Corporation of the United States. He and his elected officials work for the corporation, not for the American people. Since the United States is a corporation, who owns the corporation of the United States? Like Canada and Australia, whose leaders are prime ministers of the Queen and whose land is called Crown Land, the United States is just another Crown colony. Crown colonies are controlled by the empire of 3 city-states. At the center of each city-state is a towering, phallic-shaped stone monument called an obelisk that points skyward. In D.C. city-state, the obelisk, known as the Washington Monument, was dedicated to Freemason George Washington by the Freemason Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia.